Welcome to the Unbelief Podcast. I am Jeremy, and I am interviewing today a really interesting person, Olivier Bonnacy. He's a French author, graduate of the prestigious École Polytechnique, which is the best university in France for science. And he wrote a European bestseller with his co-author Michel-Yves Bolloré, and the title of that book is Brief Overview of God. And as a European bestseller, it's sold over 400,000 copies, and it's coming to the U.S. now, where they've taken that like almost 600-page book that was originally written in France and translated into English and updated the content, because it's been 4 years and science and insight changes, as well as I guess your own personal thinking around all of this. So Olivier, welcome. Thank you so much for being on the Unbelief Podcast.
Thank you, Jeremy.
So I'd love to just start with, could you give us a 30,000-foot view of what this book is?
This book is try to answer to a very limited question: is there a God or not?
Right.
We are not dealing with who is God, does he say, what does he think. It's not in this book. Only the existence of God, and our only compass is rationality, and we are examining 12 different fields of knowledge, and we are saying to the people, to the readers, you are the jury of this investigation, and you will decide for yourself what is the most rational, the most probable for you between the two options: God exists and God does not exist.
Yes.
So it's a very limited book on a very limited question.
It is a very very narrow question, but it is thorough, and I really appreciate that, because 562 some odd pages, it is you don't wait, right? Like you don't do the thing that a lot of authors of a text like this do, and try to make it quick and simple and
Yes.
overgeneralize. Yeah.
Yes, one of the reasons of the success of this book is that it's very accurate and very clear, but also very easy to read and very accessible for ordinary people. And and this question of the existence of God is one of the most important questions of our lives.
Yeah.
Because if God does not exist, everything is permitted, as Dostoevsky, Sartre, Dawkins said. There is no such thing as good or evil, no natural law, no purpose, no future, no eternity. Nothing remains. And we are just clusters of cells in a particular configuration of atoms brought together by the laws of the forces of physics and chemistry.
Yeah.
So it's a very special vision of the world. And on the contrary, if God exists, there is someone who wanted us there. There is good and evil. There is a purpose. There is a future. There is an eternity. And all what we can build in eternity has infinite value compared to everything that happens on Earth. So this question changed everything. Yeah. It's a completely different world. So it's rather strange and curious that we don't talk more about this key issue.
Yeah. Tell me just quickly, what was it that you studied at École Polytechnique?
It's about science. It's as the name says, it's polytechnic. It's many science. It's not specialized. We are making specialization after the school, but we are looking at all the global science in mathematics, physics, biology, everything.
Right. And did you specialize afterwards?
No, I after this I became an entrepreneur. Yeah. And so I was a scientist, but for business.
Right. Yeah. So you started off as an atheist, right?
Yes. When I was 20, I was not an atheist. I was an agnostic.
Okay.
I said that but I believe that believers were irrational people, that they believe very strange things, and I had the surprise to discover that there is a lot of very strong, convincing, and rational reasons to believe in God and in Jesus also. So
Yeah.
it was a big surprise for me, and to summarize, it changed my life to discover
Yeah.
this at the age of 20.
Yeah. I've got a problem with my camera, so if you'll just give me a second, I'm going to fix that.
Hello? I can't
So
hear you.
one
Yes.
of the yeah, so I think to start off with, one of the things that you address in the book, I think a lot of times is like a foundational concept that a lot of people don't think about, haven't been exposed to, and this is the idea of materialism, and that a lot of modern science has an underlying assumption that is this materialist assumption. Can you tell us what is that?
Yes, materialism is a theory that thinks that there is nothing more than the material universe. There is nothing outside. The universe is everything that exists. And this is the point of our book. The conclusion of our book at the end is that we think, as authors, we are not hiding this. We think that materialism is an irrational belief,
Okay.
because there is so many different ways to see that it does not work. And the first way is science, because science is what is very special in our book. Is the beginning. In the beginning, you have this graph about the great reversal of science. It
Mhm.
means that during centuries, science seems to be able to explain the world without the hypothesis of God.
Right.
At the beginning, with Copernic, Galilei, Newton, Laplace, and Freud,
Mhm.
and many people like this, they all made incredible discoveries that changed totally the vision of the world. And the hypothesis of God was not necessary at all. And
Yeah.
we could imagine that it will continue like this in the future, and that science will explain everything. And then at the end of this, at the end of the 19th century, Freud and Marx, who claimed to be scientists, they said that the religion was toxic, and it was the
Mhm.
opium of the people. And
Yeah.
in fact, so all this create a very strong materialist and scientific intellectual current that
Mhm.
dominated in the past. But
Right.
everything changes because of a series of scientific revolutions, uh, thermodynamics,
Uh-huh.
quantum mechanics, relativity,
Mhm.
the discovery of the expansion of the universe, the discovery of the Big Bang, the discovery of complexity in biology, and also all the fine tunings of the universe. All
Yeah.
this create a very totally different picture now.
Yeah.
And if you want us to summarize the conclusion of science
Mhm.
in many fields, not one science, but many science,
Yeah.
first, we are in a space-time in which space, time, and matter are inextricably linked, as Einstein demonstrated. Second, there is a beginning. It's not only the Big Bang. 7 different rational approaches said that it's not possible that there is an infinite amount of time in the past.
Right. Well, let's get into each of those sections. Each of these
Just to
sections.
finish,
Yeah. Sorry.
perhaps, yes, we can go deeper after, but just to finish the big picture, there is a fine tuning not only of the initial data of the universe, but also of the 4 forces of the universe, their value and their ratio, and also the laws of quantum mechanics, physics, chemistry, and biology. All this is absolutely calibrated and adjusted. And the natural conclusion of this is that if there is a beginning to space, time, and matter who emerge together, the cause at the origin of this emergence is by definition outside time, outside matter, and outside space.
Right. I'm curious what you would say about with that claim. Tell me about. So I read, I think it was Stephen Hawking, maybe, but he talked about the idea of the only possible universe, right? That all of these fine tunings. He didn't attribute them to a divine fine-tuning, but the universe exists in this state, and it can only exist in this state.
Yes.
Otherwise, it would collapse, right?
We call this the theory of everything, which means that this theory supposes that it exists a meta law that makes that the constants and the parameters of the universe should be exactly like this and cannot be different. But Stephen Hawking said that this theory is dead, and I agree with him, because it's absolutely crazy to say that for example, the gravity is with a certain value, and it cannot be different because of a general principle that make it mandatory to be absolutely this value. It's crazy. We cannot believe this. So it does not work. In fact, and what strikes me a lot is that all the alternatives to try to explain these new discoveries without God are very difficult to sustain, or have so far failed, in fact.
So how would a scientist that is really approaching this from this materialist perspective, how do they explain all the fine tuning, for example? Like, what is the justification for that?
There is only one attempt to explain this, is what we call multiverse. The multiverse.
Okay, right, the multiverse.
But the multiverse has 4 problems. The first one is that it's absolutely speculative and 100% speculative and impossible to check, to test.
Right, because it's trying to, if I'm correct, the multiverse theory is trying to create equations that match our what we know and can measure about the universe. Is that right?
Yes, if you want to summarize the multiverse theory, it's an attempt to explain the fine tuning,
right?
Because we are in a very, very special situation with a very precise values of every parameter of the universe.
Right.
And if for example, you change a little the gravity force or the speed of the light, of the mass of the proton or something like this, you change a little, we are not dead. It's impossible to have carbon, to have stars, to have something like this. So when scientists discover this, it's not, it's very old. It's only something like 70 years. they were very surprised, and they say, what is the explanation?
Right.
And the first explanation is God, because if a very clever intelligence set everything in order that we can be there, it's a good explanation. But if you say, I don't want God as an explanation, it's something natural. You have to imagine that we are in a gigantic lottery in which a natural process created universes like this, not one and two, but many, 10 to the power of 500.
And the idea that a lot of them, would emerge and just collapse because the conditions that were in them would not allow them to exist.
Not collapse. They are still there, but they are totally sterile.
Right.
Sterile. But so they imagine that there is an incredible number of sterile universes, and we are the only one who has, by chance, has every parameter that works. That's the multiverse theory. But the problem is, first, it's absolutely speculative. Second, it cannot explain the beauty and the harmony of our universe, because beauty is an improbability inside the improbability of the work of the universe. For example, because beauty is something rare. If you want to, because there is in our universe harmony of colors, of proportions, the golden ratio everywhere, and things like that. So it's not mandatory. You could have something that works and that is absolutely ugly, but it's very beautiful. So it's not explaining this. And third, the number of universes that you need to match with the improbability of the fine tuning is something like, in physics, it's 10 to the power of 500. But 10 to the power of 500 is absolutely, it's a crazy number.
Yeah, so those kind of numbers are difficult for people to understand. So, if we're talking about something that has a chance of 1 in 10 to the power of 500, how does that compare to the probability of other things that people can?
I can tell you just an example. If I ask you to count to 1 billion, with pronouncing one figure every second, night and days, you will need 30 years. And if you have to count to a billion, 10 to the power of 27, you will need 2 billion times the age of the universe. You imagine what is 2 billion times the age of the universe. It's something incredible. And you are only at 10 to the power of 27. So you are at a billion. But to have 10 to the power of 500, it's a billion. So it's absolutely crazy. And there is a last but not least, the reason why Stephen Hawking said that the multiverse theory is dead is that if this machine that creates universes tries to fix the value of the gravity between 0 and infinite, it will never find the very tiny range that make it work. So you have to if for example the gravity is 6, you have to target the machine should have to target between 5 and 10 or 2 and 20. But if the machine target between 20 and 30, the machine will never find 6. So this machine that create universes have to be fine-tuned also. The process that create the universes have to be fine-tuned, but by whom? So Stephen Hawking said the multiverse tried to explain the fine-tuning, but the multiverse need another fine-tuning. So it does not work. And what is very impressive, we have the chance to we made 4 documentaries with 10 Nobel Prize winners, and we spoke with them, and in Princeton, we have conferences in Princeton, in Berkeley, in Cambridge. We will have one in Oxford soon. And I had talks with, for example, Saul Perlmutter, a very well-known Nobel Prize, or John Matter, or others. And I say, do you agree that we are in a space-time? And they say, yes, of course, 100%.
Right.
Do you agree that there is a beginning? Yes, we are quite sure that there is a beginning. There is no option for an infinite amount of time in the past. Do you agree that we have fine-tuning? Yes, of course, they agree. And at the end, do you agree that the hypothesis of God works? And they told me all, yes, of course, that hypothesis works. But as we are scientists, we cannot say that, because if we say God, we stop working.
And the other thing I think is this idea that
yes. So they said we are trying.
Go ahead.
They said we are trying to find natural explanations.
Right.
But for the moment, we have nothing. And very important, because if they said that for the moment they have nothing, I was joking and said, it's not only for the moment that you will have nothing. It's forever, because if there is a beginning of time, space, and matter, the cause will always be outside time, outside space, outside matter. What is the key point to understand this point? Is that the beginning is not only the creation, the beginning of time and matter. It's the beginning of space.
Mm-hmm.
Before, if we can say before, because we cannot, there was no space. Space, what is around us, was created. And it's a very impressive thing, because as soon as you have space, you have time and you have matter, because you have quantum fields and things like this. So the beginning of space is something crazy, because of course the cause is outside, not only now, but forever.
Yeah.
So it's very impressive, because science rediscovered the basic definition of God that we have in science, in philosophy, or religion. Mm-hmm. That is to say, a transcendent being outside the universe that created everything, that had the power to create everything and also to adjust everything so that human beings could be there one day.
Right. So, I'm curious how you respond to somebody who says something like, this idea of, there's a beginning, there's got to be a cause, but the people that would say, like, this sort of expansion of human knowledge has repeatedly in this piece of the science has repeatedly broken the theological explanation, right? So, like, we understand the universe, then you find the Doppler effect, and we see that it's expanding, right? And so that means if you run it back, it contracts, and then we've got the theory, the Big Bang and all that stuff. And at each step of the way, whatever was outside of the scientific knowledge was explained by God, and that if we keep going, that the trajectory of science is to give that we will have some tool that will then explain the beginning, and which would then create this problem again, where since this gap in understanding was filled in with God, that now that it's the science will disprove that again.
Yes, of course. You are speaking, it's very important to understand that what we call the God of the gaps. God of the gaps is the explanation that you give when you have no explanation for the moment, and you say, it's God.
Right.
But it works when you have a lack of knowledge, when you miss knowledge. So, but now it's not the case at all. It's an excess, a new knowledge that leads to new questions, because in science, sometimes you have a certainty. When you have physical intuitions, mathematical model, and observation and experimentation together, you are sure at 100%. For example, the sun, in the past, all the people think that the sun was eternal and that it was a god, and the moon also. And the Hebrew people came and said, no, they are not God. They were made by God, but they are the beginning. They will have an end. And for centuries, the Hebrew were not aligned with all the empires and all the people. But at the end, now we know that the Hebrews were right, because we are sure at 100% that the sun is burning like a candle. And so it had a beginning, it will have an end, and it's exactly like what the Hebrews were saying. So sometimes science can make a decision and give certainty.
Right.
And what is very important is that when you have a new discovery of science, for example, the beginning, it raises new questions, and you need an explanation. And the beginning of the universe is something very simple. A child can understand.
Right.
If you have a beginning, you have a God.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, in our book, we have a very interesting chapter, because it's called the Noir Thriller of the Big Bang. It's about what happened to the scientists who discover the Big Bang in Russia. Here, they were all persecuted. They were sent to to psychiatric hospital, to Gulag. They were shot. They were tortured, because they were not making politics. They were making science.
Right.
And but for the regime, for the communist atheist regime of Russia at this time, it was absolutely impossible that there is a beginning, because if there is a beginning, there is a God. They were very clear, and they were right. And now we are sure that there is a beginning. You know, because some scientists will tell you that we are not sure, we don't know. No, it's because they are not looking at the global picture. They are looking at very small pieces of the global picture. But if you look at the global picture, you are sure at 100% that there is a beginning.
Right. Well, I'm curious. You know, I'm clearly not a scientist, right? But I'm curious, because it seems like when I think historically, you know, there are multiple points where scientists said, you know, we are sure 100% that there is, you know, the Earth orbits the sun, right, or whatever. And how is this different? How is this different than that when you claim that we are sure that there is a beginning? Like, what prevents that from, in 100 years, being another instance of, you know, we said we were sure of that, and then we got this other piece of data and realized that was wrong.
Yes.
How is this different?
Yes. You know, it's not. We have a chapter number 2 speaking about evidence and the difference between evidence and proof. You have absolute proof in mathematics, for example, with when you demonstrate something, and but it only exists in limited universes. In the real world, you don't have absolute proof, but you have evidence, and when you have a lot of evidence converging in the same direction, at the end you say that you have a certainty. That's the case with the beginning of the universe. You have we have a chapter number 7 in which you have 7 different approaches, rational approaches, that said that it's impossible that there is an infinite amount of time in the past. The first one is very simple. It's not about science, it's a rationality. It's a commentary of Aristotle in the 6th century. His name was Philoponus. And Philoponus said, he was a critic of Aristotle, and Aristotle said, believed that the universe was eternal, stable, and but Philoponus said, no, it's not possible, because if you count from now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you never stop, you will go towards infinity, but it will always remain what we call a potential infinity. You will never be able to say, oh, yes, I arrived to infinity, it's finished. No. Infinity, you will always progress towards infinity. For the same reason that from now, you will never reach infinity, you cannot come from the past and reach from an infinity in the past and reach now. You cannot go through an infinity. So Philoponus made a very perfect thinking. He said, it's impossible that there is an infinite amount of time in the past. There is a beginning. And this is the first one. The second one is thermodynamics. Thermodynamics explain that the universe wears out, will cease. All stars will one day cease to exist because they are like a fireplace burning, and at the end, when the candle is burned, it ceases to give light. So the stars now are burning, and the one who discovered thermodynamics, they said, how is it possible that we are going towards what we call the thermal death of the universe, when all stars will cease to exist? And people said, why are we not yet in this state?
Right.
They said there is a beginning. Of course, that you need a beginning in order to have a state with a low entropy like we have today. So, and after this,
and I remember watching Doctor Who and going to the very end of time where all the stars are going out and we're in that thermal death. I've always found that really fascinating. And I'm curious, like when the thermal death happens, life dies, but what happens to all the atoms and all of the space in space-time?
Yes. What the equation seems to describe is that the universe will grow, will accelerate its growth because there is a cosmological constant.
Right.
And the acceleration of the universe will make that at the end, there will be one proton in a place large like our galaxy, and very small matter, in very few matter everywhere. So it's what we call the thermal death of the universe.
Right.
With no thermodynamic process possible, nothing, no life, of course, nothing can happen in order to create something like life. So it's a very curious universe, but in the future, we are not 100% sure, because perhaps something will happen that we don't know today. But in the past, we are sure that it's not possible that there is an infinite amount of time in the past. And as I told you, you have not to be a scientist to understand this.
Yeah.
If there is a beginning of time, space, and matter, the beginning of space, there is a God. There is what we call a God, a being outside that had the power to create. It's so simple. For me, it's a big surprise, like because
Occam's razor, right?
Not only Occam's razor. It's more than this. It's you need a cause, and unless you believe in magics, but everything that begin to exist has a cause.
Yeah.
So the universe began to exist. So the universe needs a cause outside.
Right.
And this is the basic definition of God.
Right.
So it's so simple and so obvious that I don't understand why we try always to imagine complicated things. At the end, you have very smart people like Stephen Hawking and people like this. Mm-hmm. They are atheists. And in his last book, Stephen Hawking wrote, because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing.
Right.
And our friend John Lennox in Oxford, he said, nonsense remains nonsense even when talked by world-famous scientists. Why? He said there is in this sentence two logical issues. The first one is that because there is a law such as gravity, it's not nothing, it's something. So the universe will not create itself from nothing because there is something. Okay, so it's not logical. And second point, create yourself. You cannot create yourself because you need to precede yourself to create yourself.
Right.
So it's crazy to have. So you see the situation today. You have very smart people, very intelligent people like Stephen Hawking saying crazy things to try to remain atheist.
Yeah. I think, this is one of the things that has fascinated me. I spent a lot of time in my graduate work in theology, thinking about the nature of time and God's relationship to time. And I think, the idea that, you were just talking about, gravity, and this argument that Stephen Hawking has, that gravity sort of creates things, but gravity itself is a thing. This idea of time as duration, and the when you go back and you talk about the science leading to a beginning, beginning is a time word, and we understand, right, that space and time are related, and so if there's a beginning to space, there's also a beginning to time, and so this means that time itself, in your theory of God being the cause, that time itself is created by God, and so that helps, I think, conceptualize this experience of God, of God's interaction with our time-bound, duration-bound perception of existence.
Yes. We are in a very special universe. What we call time is linked to matter.
Right.
We don't know something different. We don't know different. Perhaps there is different options, but in our universe, we cannot imagine something different because we are in this very special universe where time, space, and matter are linked. It's Einstein had this intuition. He made a theory with this intuition, and after he modelized this with a mathematical model, and he made previsions. And these previsions were very quickly verified, and it works very well. So we are sure that not of the theory of Einstein, perhaps the theory of Einstein is an approximation of the truth, but we are sure that there is something that makes that time, space, and matter are linked. And it means that as soon as you have space in our universe, as soon as you have space, you have particles that happen to occur and disappear, like in quantum mechanics. So you have quantum fields, and you have time. So that's the nature of our universe. So as soon as you have time, space, you have time and matter. So the beginning of all is the beginning of space. L'abbé Georges Lemaître was the one who proposed the theory of the Big Bang. And he saw this immediately. He said the key point is not the beginning of time and matter. The key point is the beginning of space. Because we are in something that has been created. If you go straight away with an infinite speed in this direction, you will come back in back.
Where you started.
Your back. So we are in something close on itself that was created. So it's very strange, but you have to. Sometimes it's not easy to understand.
Yeah.
But
one of the things that I really appreciate about your approach is the way that that you don't come at this question in the same way that, let's say, creation scientists come to evolution and things like that. I appreciate your approach because this approach allows for all of the observations and theories of science to exist and be valued. Because, and tell me if I'm wrong, what I think I hear you saying is that that your argument for God is that God caused and guided all of that process. And so in some ways, when science is discovering something or theorizing something like evolution, they're actually just looking at the process that God guided. Is that right?
Yes. yes, we can say we discovered what is very important is to understand is that all these discoveries are less than 150 years ago. We
Right,
don't know
right.
anything about this. They are new discoveries and they are confirmed every year.
Right.
And we discover more and more fine tunings of the universe every year.
Yeah.
So we are understanding that the universe is like a clock, and it needs a clockmaker, because you
Right.
cannot have something with such incredible fine tuning and adjustment and regulation without an intelligence behind. You know, the first one who spoke about this was Einstein. Einstein said that all the people involved in science will discover one day that there is an incredible intelligence behind the laws of the universe.
Yeah.
And he wrote this in a very famous letter in 1936, but it was decades before the discoveries of the fine tunings of the universe. But he had this intuition that something very intelligent is necessary to create this universe. So you know, for example, if you look at the metabolism of a cell, a simple cell, every living being is composed with cells, and all cells are coded by DNA. And DNA is an incredible language it's a technology. It's a, you know, the density of information in the DNA is 40,000 billion times more dense than what we can do in the most perfectioned ships today in our century. So the DNA is an incredible technological language that came from the laws of the universe 3.8 billion years ago, and that coded the bacteria, the human beings, the plants and animals, everything. And life has a level of complexity totally incredible. And we are discovering this every day. So the evidence that there is an intelligence behind this is more and more clear every day, in fact, at the end.
I find the DNA stuff.
Physics.
Yeah, I find the DNA stuff really fascinating. This like tiny microscopic thing actually can encode, I think it's something like over 200 petabytes of data. So yes. I, you know, Oliver, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. The book is A Brief Overview of God, the Science, the Evidence, by Olivier Bonnacy and Michel-Yves Bellache. And you should go to Amazon, anywhere you like to get books, and check it out. It is a fascinating, thorough text, and I think that you'll love it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Now for our live audience, if you are interested in I'm sorry, here we go. If you are interested in asking Olivier a question, he is a highly trained scientist from the prestigious École Polytechnique, the best university in France for science. We're live on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, and so if you have a question, go ahead and post that in the chat, and we will ask a real scientist who has studied this idea of God and science and the inner relationship between what science has discovered and what that says about God. I can tell you there's a little bit of delay between when I ask a question and when people hear it. So
we are waiting for the question. But what I would like to tell the people about this book is that everyone on earth seeks happiness. Everyone
Mhm.
seeks happiness, but how to find it? Everyone has his own worldview, but is it the right one? Without a good one, you risk being led in wrong directions and making
Mhm.
bad choices. So we all need truth, light, hope, but this must be based on solid ground. So to find the
Yeah.
right answer, you need to address the question of the existence of God. And what we are saying with this book is that it's much more, it's very easy today, more easy than ever to have to make a conclusion on
Okay.
this very important question.
Uh, I was gonna uh, I was gonna ask you. There was something that at some point I heard. I'm not sure if you were familiar with David Wilkinson. Um,
Yes.
yes, I met him and got to hear a talk that he gave and hang out with him for a little bit afterwards. But he talked about how we are all made of stardust and really talked about this interaction and connection amongst everything. And I'm curious, it was just such a beautiful concept. And I think that's something that a lot of people um, experience at a deep
You know,
level. This, yeah.
you are saying that we are stardust. It's exactly
Mhm.
this. And you know that this converted Fred Hoyle. Fred Hoyle was the most important enemy or opponent to Father Georges Lemaitre, because
Huh.
when Father Georges Lemaitre proposed his theory of a primordial atom at the beginning of the universe, he said, "No, it's not possible. I'm an atheist. You do this to fit with the Bible." Uh, and he proposed something else, and he coined the term Big Bang in order to mock the concept. At the BBC radio, he said that you cannot imagine that all this begin with a Big Bang. And he was an atheist. But at the end, he converted later and become a believer because he discovered that the triple alpha reaction that enables carbon synthesis in stars will be impossible without an excited state of carbon at a very precise energy level
Mhm.
unknown at this time. And this energy level is very precise, and this value, to have this very precise value, you need a lot of fine tunings. For example, if you change the mass of the quarks of 1%, it's impossible to produce carbon in the stars. So if you don't have carbon, you don't have oxygen, you don't have life, you don't have nothing. And that's the reason why Fred Hoyle was very surprised. And at the end, he concluded that a super intellect deliberately designed the laws of nuclear physics.
Mhm.
So, and he converted and he became a deist,
Yeah.
you know. And you said that we are stardust. It's exactly this. It's in the stars with a very special reaction, very fine-tuned reaction that are produced all the atoms like carbon, oxygen, and all the others. And if you don't have this very precise setting of fine tunings, we will not be there to talk about this. So scientists like Fred Hoyle, they convert and become Christian or believers because of science. That's very
Uh-huh.
new.
Yeah. That is so fascinating. If you have a question, uh, go ahead and put it in the chat, and we'll take a little bit of time to answer those questions. And we're talking with Olivier Bonassi, who is the co-author of Brief Overview of God, the Science and Evidence. He is a scientist from a graduate of the prestigious École Polytechnique, and he wrote this book with Michel-Yves Bolloré. And so we'd love to give you a chance to ask your own question of a real life scientist. Uh, uh, so if you want to put those in the chat, we will ask we will try to do our best to answer any of those questions. As we do that, I'm curious. Um, uh, what do you think is the most common question you get from people when you meet them in a bar and they ask you what you do? You tell them about this book. What's the thing that they say? I've always wanted to know.
Yes. No, most of the people, we said that this question of the existence of God is one of the most important questions of our life. Everybody agrees that it's very important to know if God exists or not. But most of the people, they believe that we cannot make a decision on this. They believe that this question is undecidable, or we cannot, it's undeterminate or unanswerable. And they have good arguments for that, because they are saying that there is a lot of people believing, a lot of people non-believing, very smart and intelligent people everywhere. So why me, with my little brain, I can have a certainty?
Right.
But it's not true, because there is a progress of knowledge. It's the key point. Science and knowledge progress at breakneck speed. And at the end, the answer is binary. God exists or God does not exist. But the only reason why we cannot answer is that our lack of knowledge. But as the knowledge progress, it's more and more clear in every field, not only in science. We spoke a lot of science, but there is also evidence in philosophy, in morality, and in history. In this book, we are also looking at enigmas, very incredible enigmas in the Bible, the story of the Jewish people, Jesus Christ, or the miracle of Fatima. All these enigmas cannot be explained with natural explanation. And if there is the key point is that the two theses, God exists and God does not exist, have real world implications. If God does not exist, there is no beginning. There is you have implications. The chance and random is everywhere, and you cannot have very special fine tunings. But also, you don't have good and evil, and also you don't have miracles, you don't have prophecies, you don't have revelation, you don't have things like this. So if you can make the proof that there is a real miracle, the thesis of the non-existence of God collapse.
Right. We have a question from one of our TikTok users, Drunky. They ask, if we have civilizations that existed before a Christian God, why do we still believe he created them?
No, the consideration that we have concerning the global universe are not limited by time or space. We are considering global vision of the universe, and we said there is a beginning. There is a beginning for us, and for aliens, if they exist, there are also a beginning. So, but at the end, we can say that perhaps God created other worlds, other kinds of lives. It's absolutely possible, but it's not. It does not change the conclusion of the necessity of the existence of a God for creating everything.
Right. I think to answer take this in a little bit of a theological question, the idea that Christianity would claim that that their God created everything, even though other religions existed before Christianity. I think that's Christianity is a really broad. It's a religion, right? There's a broad. There's broad thinking on a lot of things. There are some Christians that would argue that if they believe that there's only one God, that then all the other things that have ever existed were really when any human was longing to connect with the divine or was sensing the divine, that was what they were sensing, and that was what they were describing, and so they would, so people who are in that more progressive stream of Christianity would offer a more universal take on religion, not and allow for interfaith, interreligion, or religious perspectives.
As we said at the beginning, this book is trying to answer a very limited question: is there a God or not? If you answer there is a God, you need another investigation to say who is this God.
Right.
Who is, and this is a religion issue. We are not in religion. We are not about faith and religion. We are about knowledge and God. But if you conclude God exists, you need to have another investigation, because if there is no revelation, people cannot imagine how is God from the world. You cannot imagine the creator from the creation. It's not possible. Right. So you need a revelation. But there is many candidates. You have the Christian, the Jewish, the Muslim, the Scientologist, the Moon, Rael.
Right. It feels like, I know infinity is problematic, but it almost feels like infinity.
Yes. No, so you have to look at the reasons to believe in these different. Is there reason to believe in Jesus, for example? Of course, you will find reasons, but it's another investigation. You will find prophecies. You will find miracles. You will find saints, you will find apparitions, you will find a lot of people, witnesses their meeting with Jesus.
Right.
So,
and that's the same kind of data
another
that
investigation. It's not in our book.
Yeah, and that's the same kind of data you get from religion in general, and that's one of the things that I really. So I'm a deep skeptic. I want data to guide my beliefs, but that data has to be appropriate to its field, right? So we want to discover, how erosion happens, right? We're going to talk to geologists, not cosmologists. And if you're wanting to do this exploration of religion, you need to look for reputable sources in the field of religion. So, I have had so much fun talking with you, Olivier Bonnassy. The book is a brief overview of God, the science, the evidence, a bestseller in Europe, co-written with Michel-Yves Bellaret. And thanks everybody for being on the live. And we will release this conversation also on the podcast Unbelief.
Thank you very much, Jeremy.
All right. We are shutting down.